OutKick 360 is back alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Kuharski. I'm Jonathan Hutton. Glad you're with us across the OutKick network. Gentlemen, good morning.
It's good to be back. Wouldn't be a show of ours unless we had a technical problem with Paul to start with the sound on there. You got it quickly, though, so kudos to you on that. Good job. Good catch.
Listen, I love the song. I want to hear it, too.
It's a great song.
I don't want just the people. Why should we be denied our music?
It's a good reminder, though, that Paul will be following the YouTube channel and the YouTube chat throughout the show.
Found it earlier. I have the first comment.
If you want to get in touch with us, if you want to interact, Twitter, OutKick360, hit us up there. Let us know what you want to hear, questions you have, comments about anything going on in the show. Please interact with us.
I'm giving us a thumbs up. I already like what we're doing.
Perfect. Good job.
Subscribe while you're there.
I have.
Oh, the subscription's
really
already
paid
there.
Off.
So if you subscribe on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, write a review on the podcast if you're catching the show after we go off the air. We are live every day at noon Eastern right here on OutKick.com and across the OutKick platform. Plenty to get to today. John McClain from the Houston Chronicle will join us in roughly 15 minutes. We'll dive into the Deshaun Watson headlines where the Texans quarterback now faces 16 civil lawsuits. We will get the latest from the man in black himself, John McClain, who has covered the league and worked for the Houston Chronicle for 45 years. That's coming up. Also, we will talk NFL draft today. We will each bring a tidbit, an early representation of what we're watching as we get set for the first round of NFL coverage from an individual prospect perspective. That's coming up in about 45 minutes. Then the Tennessee Power Hour, which includes Isaiah Wilson in the headlines yet again for something he did a few months ago. Yes, he was arrested again. We will have those
Spoiler
details.
alert.
We'll talk a little Preds. We've got some Vanderbilt headlines to hit and much, much more. But a quick reminder, FanDuel.com/OK360. That's where you can go and check out a great offer this week as we get set for the Sweet 16 coming up this weekend. 30-1 odds for new users in Tennessee and across the platform of states that allow FanDuel to work within the state lines. You go to FanDuel.com/OK360. 30-1 odds, which means you place a $5 bet, you can win $150 on any of those games you like. Check it out. The exclusive offer through FanDuel.com/OK360. Restrictions apply.
Look, I'm not going to say this to everybody, just to you. Put that $5 on the Zags. Boom.
That's all you. That's what you're going to do? That's the play?
Well, I'm not a
That's
new
it?
user.
Oh, okay.
But if I were
got
a
you.
new user,
if you're the new user, yeah.
I would put that $5 on the Zags.
We're all in on the Zags right now. By the way, also a reminder, the OutKick VIP program right now. We're going to tweet out from OutKick 360 where you can follow us and interact. We got a special going on with the OutKick VIP program. In fact, shout out to Katie Robinson, who sent us a message, and for her husband Cody on his birthday. The birthday gift was an OutKick VIP membership for his birthday. So special shout out to Katie and Cody Robinson for that. We appreciate you. It's very easy, very affordable, and we will tweet out that link right now as to where you can sign up with a 30% discount to be an OutKick VIP.
Question for you guys out of the gate while we're talking NCAA tournament briefly and giving advice on the Zags, who are just going to continue to put up points.
I mean, that's going to be the biggest spread, right? I haven't looked at the spread.
Yeah, it's double digits.
They're the surest
It's double
thing.
digits. There are a couple of double digits, though, I believe.
11.5 at least.
Do you think it helps the Cinderellas that they're staying in Indianapolis this week? That they're not going back to their campus? They're not being told how great they are. These towns are not throwing parades as they win 2 games in the NCAA tournament. That they're within the restrictive area of Indianapolis in the college basketball tournament where it is straight ball? Or does it not matter at this point because Sweet 16 is Sweet 16?
I'll go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it hurts. I think there's something to taking that juice back to campus, feeding off the campus energy, the fan base, the pep rallies, whatever, even sliding into some classes where that can't help but be the buzz in the lecture hall or the seminar or whatever, and then packing up and going off to another destination from where you went. I think that's part of the thrill of the whole thing. And certainly they're still going to be juiced. I'm not suggesting that's a letdown. Also, they don't know necessarily what they're missing. I mean, some of these Loyola Chicago guys have been there before. Some of them have not, right? But I get what you're saying, but I don't think it's going to have a dramatic effect one way or the other. And I think they're actually missing out on part of it. I know there's a high percentage of these teams that have letdowns, so I think collectively that we're not rating Loyola Chicago as one of those teams based on its talent and its underseeding and all of those things.
See, I think it helps the Cinderella team staying in Indianapolis for this reason. Teams that are more together, have a better culture, have been around each other longer, I think benefit from this bubble atmosphere where you're around your team the whole time. You're going from hotel room to lobby for food to a meeting room to practice somewhere, and you're basically staying indoors the whole time. And typically, why do these Cinderella teams have success? Because they're senior-led teams, they're veteran guys, they're four-year players, they've been around each other for a while, they understand each other, there's a better built-in chemistry and culture with these teams. So I do think that it helps. I don't think it's a huge problem when they go back to campus. It's fun, obviously. It sucks for some of these teams. They don't get that campus feel for what they just accomplished and to go back. But I think overall, to your question, Hutton, I think it's going to help these teams because those teams that are more together and senior-led are going to be an advantage now.
I think also there's a difference between the hyper-focus that you're kind of suggesting, which is no doubt here, and the potential to feel claustrophobic, which we heard some indications of last week, where the food variety and the inability to even go outside and get some fresh air doesn't exist.
Well, I need to clarify, too, when I say the Cinderellas, it's also the teams who haven't been here in a while.
Yeah.
Arkansas and Alabama specifically come to mind for me. Arkansas hasn't been in this spot since, 97?
Right.
Chad?
It's not about the program.
2004 for Alabama. And that you could also go back to campus, albeit they're not the Cinderella that we're used to. They're not Oral Roberts.
Right.
They go back home and they're told how great they are.
It's
and they're
these
winning the
specific
national
players,
title.
not the program.
Yeah, and I think it can benefit in some ways. Now, meanwhile, you have the teams who have been there and done that. Michigan, Florida State, probably no impact there, coming or going, right?
Zags.
Gonzaga, Baylor, Alabama, and Gonzaga, the three best teams in the tournament right now. But I'm curious how the bubble effect will affect the games coming up this weekend as they wait till Saturday.
Well, and it's you look at all these teams, and first off, the better team's going to benefit at all times. But you called it the bubble effect, Hutton. What's bad about this for these teams is they don't get to go back to their campus or go back home until their season's over. So
right.
You don't get the celebration mode unless you're the national champion.
Win mode.
Right. You don't get that week, 3-4 days where you go back and then eventually head back to the site wherever you're playing and, go into a different city. I mean, there's a lot of things. And look, it's 2020 and now into 2021. There's a lot of moments that have been robbed from a lot of athletes and a lot of coaches. But this is just another example of not getting the full NCAA tournament success treatment.
Experience.
Go somewhere, win 2 games, go home, celebrate with fellow students, and then go to another city and experience some of that city and practice and get ready to play games in that city. Instead, you're stuck in a hotel in Indianapolis getting ready for games. We could go back and forth about who benefits and who doesn't. I think bottom line is just who handles it better. We saw teams in the first round that didn't handle being away from campus for some cases, 11, 12 days. If you went to a conference tournament, hung around, and then flew to Indianapolis, and we saw the ones that thrived in that environment.
And we don't know for
Virginia.
sure how much that was a factor in it.
Well,
or not.
Virginia went home and then came. They were sent home and had to go to the tournament and lost. So I'm probably reaching for valid reasons why or why not it's going to benefit one team or the other.
Well, it's an ingredient.
I'm fascinated to see how it plays out and how the betting public also views some of these games with these spreads.
I know Gonzaga's a double-digit spread. I know that Arkansas is a 10.5-point favorite over Oral Roberts. I think those are the only double-digit spreads in this tournament, but that's left. But, I mean, look, we joked about it, but we love the Cinderella. We love Oral Roberts beating Ohio State. Television ratings typically show, and the game quality typically shows, we don't love Oral Roberts in the Sweet 16 or Elite 8. So this is an opportunity. Abilene Christian. We loved Abilene Christian the first round against Texas, and they got blown out against UCLA in the second round. So how do these Cinderella teams, I would even put an Oregon State into that mix, even though they're a Power 5 team, look great in their first two games. They're in the Sweet 16. They get a shot now at Loyola. So kind of two Cinderella teams doing battle. How do those games rate on television? How competitive are those games? These are all things I'm going to be watching in the Sweet 16.
That might be my favorite game coming up. And I hate the name recognition, big team draw element of it. That's part of why I love the tournament. I can go love that second weekend matchup. I don't care if it's on True TV. I know how to find it now, especially you have the remote where you just, say show me college basketball or say the name of the game or say True TV and you're there. It's not as hard to fish as it used to be to find these channels now, as ridiculous as it is that some of these games are on True TV and we're seeing previews to shows that we'll never go back and watch and all of that. But I don't care what the numbers are on that game. If that's the most compelling game, and if it turns out to be a compelling game, big names be damned. Also, there's less and less overlap now, so you can watch most of it.
Here's what's great about this tournament this year. I think everyone that's not a fan of one of these other schools is probably rooting for Gonzaga and Loyola in the championship game. I think we typically root for the Cinderella early and not late, but I feel like this is a year where Loyola's not as much of a Cinderella, more of a known commodity because of the run to the Final Four a few years ago, but also to have that setup where this is Gonzaga's tournament to lose. If they could get there on one side and then Loyola could go on a run, to me that would be the ideal national championship game.
Well,
if it was Gonzaga and Loyola Chicago.
Also think of all the fans that have been set free from the good teams in this tournament that are out and the good teams that weren't even there. You got Duke fans and Kentucky fans, huge fan bases that have been free from, before the selection committee got to work. And now, all these other great schools that are out of the
Louisville,
tournament.
Indiana. It's not just those.
Yeah, right.
Blue Bloods that had no
Bloods
shot.
like crazy. And then all of these top teams that are knocked out in the first week. Fans are available to be had. Make your bet or not, and then, jump on board.
What has been the reaction for Houston Texans fans with all of the allegations surrounding their quarterback, Deshaun Watson? And internally, what are the Texans saying about it? John McClain joins us next on OutKick 360 to discuss. OutKick 360 on the OutKick Network alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Kuharski. I'm Jonathan Hutton. Subscribe on YouTube. Share the video on Facebook if you're watching that way. Give us a follow on Twitter and retweet the content at OutKick 360. Our next guest, John McClain, who is no stranger to our previous program, our previous station, and we're thrilled to have him on the OutKick Network and OutKick 360 for the very first time. A lot to discuss with a man who has worked for the Houston Chronicle for 45 years, and he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame for his great work covering the league. John, hope you're doing well.
I am, guys. Thank you. Congratulations on your new gig. Keep up the great work.
Thank you so much. What started as one accusation against Deshaun Watson now reads as 16 civil lawsuits filed. What has been the reaction in Houston in particular, from the fan base, from the general public, surrounding the organization and surrounding their star quarterback?
Everybody's shocked, as you can imagine. It's almost numbing right now, considering there are 16. Watson's attorney, Rusty Hardin, who's one of the top attorneys in the country, he's recognized for representing superstar professional athletes. He weighed in yesterday with a statement and then an affidavit from Watson's marketing manager that one of the accusers tried to blackmail him. And then Tony Busby represents the 16 women, and he says there will be more. He has been incredibly outspoken, and he's been prominent on social media every day. So it's a huge controversy. And what it all means is the Texans were planning to trade Watson. They had multiple teams interested. They were going to try to trade him by the start of the draft. They were hoping to get 3 1s, 2 2s, and a starting defensive player, pass rusher, or a cornerback. But all that's out the window because there's no way any of this will be resolved by the start of the draft on April 29th. And Watson could be suspended. He could be put on the commissioner's exempt list if this goes into regular season. But, it's terrible for the women. They deserve to be heard. But Watson is innocent until proven guilty. The NFL is investigating. No one has to cooperate with them. They don't have subpoena power. But Busby said all of his clients would cooperate. And what needs to happen, Watson needs to get in there and make this go away. It cost him a lot of money, but he's got to reach settlements with the women. So before they talk to the NFL, and there's a good chance he'll be suspended anyway, no matter who he's playing with, because you don't have to be, you don't have to have criminal charges against you. You can have cases dropped, but there's the personal conduct penalty, and there's a part of that about bad judgment. And what we know he's guilty of is bad judgment. So I would expect at some point next season that Watson would be serving a suspension.
Like this, John, seem to me typically go from criminal then to civil. So it feels a little bit backwards that it's all civil. We know Busby turned over some evidence and descriptions of what is alleged to have happened to Houston authorities. What's your sense of the possibility of criminal charges? Understanding is that Houston authorities haven't commented on what they received. Any sense of a timetable there? And what do you believe the likelihood is that criminal charges are going to be part of this?
Well, first, I don't have a clue. Nobody has a clue. Tony Busby said he was going to do that. I don't think he's done it yet. He's hoping they'll bring criminal charges. He's hoping that the district attorney will impanel a grand jury. Just because he's hoping doesn't mean they will. If they don't, it doesn't mean they don't think he's guilty. It means they don't think they could prove their case. But in this instance, you have 16 women. They don't know each other. They're from different parts of the country. What began as one woman wanting $30,000 to make it go away, according to his attorney, Rusty Hardin, has mushroomed into 16 with the threat of more by Tony Busby. We have 2 Houston heavyweight attorneys, Tony Busby and Rusty Hardin, going at it for the court of public opinion. And right now, Busby is winning. But It's not going to go away anytime soon. The NFL has to investigate. They still haven't finished with Antonio Brown's investigation from 2019. They took a year to investigate Ezekiel Elliott. No charges were filed, and they suspended him for 6 games. So the NFL takes a long time for their wheels of justice. They turn very slowly, just like court of law. And it looks like what Busby wants is a settlement. That's what he wanted initially, according to Rusty Hardin. And Busby said last night he's got other things to turn over that have not been disclosed yet to the police, that we're waiting for the next salvo to be fired from the accuser's side.
How hard did you laugh at speculation that the Texans were somehow behind this information being leaked and behind these lawsuits?
Chad, that's
when
one
people
of the,
first started saying
that's
that.
one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. And because number one, they're no longer going to get 3 1s, 2 2s, and a starting player, even if that's what they had asked for. Nobody would give it. I think somebody would have, because you're talking about a quarterback in the prime of his career, coming off the best season of his career in every statistic. And until this, he seemed like a pillar of the community with charity work and gave his money. He was involved in businesses. Everybody loved Deshaun Watson. He had endorsements. He had a lot of endorsement opportunities. And now, I don't know. But the thing that the Texans were behind it, they were going to sabotage their best efforts to rebuild with a new franchise quarterback, multiple high draft choices for what? Watson still says if he's not traded, he's not playing for him. And so that makes no sense. I saw people trying to connect dots because Tony Busby and Cal McNair live on the same street. Well, it's the biggest street in Texas, and the homes are like a block long. And maybe Busby's edging the yard, and Cal McNair's down on his knees planting azaleas. And they say, hey, Cal, hey, Tony, let's meet on our big white median, and let's cook up a plan to make Deshaun Watson look bad. And they don't do their own yards, and they don't plant their own flowers, I can guarantee you. And so the other thing is, somebody was trying to connect this. And in 2014, when Johnny Manziel came out, Busby's an Aggie from Texas A&M, that he got a suite to the Browns games because he's going to fly and watch Manziel play every game. He got a lot of attention out of it, as most of the things Tony Busby does get attention. And so they said, okay, well, he put up billboards encouraging Mr. McNair to draft Johnny Manziel. And so people are trying to say, well, see, you knew Cal McNair. That wasn't Cal McNair. That was Bob McNair, his late father. Cal McNair didn't live on the street he lives on now until late 2017 after his home was destroyed by Hurricane Harvey. So it's mind-boggling how people are trying to make it a conspiracy theory that the Texans would just kill themselves to make Watson look bad, which is ridiculous.
Obviously, innocent until proven guilty, all of this holds true. But when it's this many women and it's this modus operandi where he's going to Instagram and DMing women to meet up with him, it seems like a bit of a habitual thing with Deshaun Watson, at least trying to contact masseuses this way. John, you've been in that city for so many years. You've covered this league for so many years. If something's going on, typically you hear about it or someone's saying something about it. Was there any inkling about this going on with Deshaun Watson from anyone you've talked to around that organization or around him?
Well, no, but when it was one-on-one, nobody would know that. This was all Watson. It was all each masseuse. And according to the lawsuits, nobody else was involved on Watson's side. This is something he did on his own. He was importing them from Georgia and California, and there's no need because there's like 1 million masseuses and masseurs in Houston, and a lot of them were from Houston. But players do things on their own. Teams can't keep up with them once they leave their facility, and you don't hear as much as you used to about players because last year we couldn't be in the facility. We couldn't talk to players. Everything was on Zoom calls, and because they limit time with players so much, and a lot of them don't come in the locker room to begin with, you don't get time to just sit around and BS with them and get to know them like you used to. And so I have no idea if people knew it. They probably knew that Watson liked massages. Going back to the Oilers in 1980, I've had so many players tell me they spent their own money to bring in masseuses and masseurs to give them deep muscle massages during the week multiple times because it helped them get over the soreness of a game and also help them get ready for the next game. And teams employ them. So you can get them from the team too, but most players I know get them privately. I've seen players say they spend over $100,000 a year on personal people to help them recover from games and get ready for the next game, even though the NFL offers it. And it's almost like a part-time job staying healthy. So the fact that Watson had a lot of massages by a lot of people doesn't surprise me, but the accusations sure did.
McClain from the Houston Chronicle with us on OutKick 360. John, have you heard from any Texans players in regards to coming out and saying anything about Watson?
Will Fuller, former Texans, did his initial news conference with the Miami media on Zoom, and he spoke up for Watson. There's been a couple other players, but because players don't know what happened, that's like I run Texas Sports Nation, our sports website, a mailbag every Friday. Those things can be like 300 inches long because ordinarily they were complaining about the coaching and the playing in the front office, and now I've told them I'm not letting people say they know Watson is innocent or guilty because they don't. I've had a lot of former athletes reach out to me and say, "Oh, he's a nice kid. There's no way he did this. The Texans are trying to make him look bad. No player's ever going to sign there again." And I don't point out 31 have just signed here because they're going to come back and say, "Well, I mean, good players," and they'd be right about that for the most part. But people are staying quiet because they want to see what happens on this. And even if he pays the settlements and it goes away, eventually he'll put it behind him and he'll play great for somebody. And it'll be like Ben Roethlisberger and Michael Vick and others. Ezekiel Elliott suspended 6 games. It'll still be out there. People will remember it, but it won't be talked about. And that's why maybe a team will try to lowball them at some point and say, "Hey, we'll give you a first round pick to take the problem off your hands." But I would imagine there'd be a huge public outcry if a team did that. But teams make controversial moves all the time. You have that initial outcry and people go on and on like it's the end of the world. But then eventually they start playing and fans are fans and they're going to be cheering for the player no matter who it is, whether it's Antonio Brown or any of the other guys who've been suspended. Brown, just while he was suspended once, they still haven't concluded the investigation that's been going on over a year. And meanwhile, he won a Super Bowl ring.
John, did you believe that the Texans were not going to trade Watson when they were not fielding calls? They said they were not accepting offers. I'm going back 2 weeks now. Or did you always believe that they would be forced into a trade based on Watson sitting out?
Here's the way I looked at it, Jonathan. When it first came out, the first week of January, right after we had talked to him on his season-ending Zoom call, I was shocked that it came out. Persons close to Watson said he wants to be traded. And I immediately tweeted, "I got a better chance of being named the next head coach than he does of being traded." And then I learned about how determined he was to get out of here. And so I started thinking, okay, it'll go on for a while, but he never changed his stance according to sources close to Watson. Watson has never said anything. He's never tweeted anything other than 3 or 4 cryptic tweets, 2 involving rap lyrics that I still don't know what he meant, and things like that. And so for the last few weeks, I've been saying he's got to be traded. The more I heard that what teams were interested in trading for him, I said they got to do it. What would be the point of him missing the all season, missing most of the season, losing millions of dollars, and the only way he would come back is right before the trading deadline if they're going to trade him in October or right in December, so his contract of $10.5 million didn't toll to 2022 when he's supposed to make $35 million when that new $156 million extension kicks in. So he would have reported at some point. But why do you want to force a guy who's miserable and doesn't want to be there to come back and play out of for financial reasons. And so I thought they're going to trade him. And after he met with David Culley, the new coach, 3 weeks ago, and he reiterated and reemphasized he would not play here. He would hold out. He's willing to lose millions to get his way. They determined they were going to trade him, but they had to get through free agency before they started listening to these offers from multiple teams. And if you have 6 teams bidding for a guy, problem is, I mean, it's pretty obvious you're going to get a damn good deal for him. And now most of those teams are going to have quarterbacks. They're going to get them in this draft. And so there won't be nearly the interest in teams willing to sacrifice, say, 3 1s, 2 2s, and a defensive player as there would be going into the draft. First day is April 29th. So the only way I see him coming back now is if he has to pay so many millions in settlements. He needs the money. And he might come back first game of the regular season when they start to get paid weekly, and then develop some kind of mysterious injury that won't allow him to play, just to be on the roster and get paid. So there's a lot of moving parts here. All of them are bad right now, and the Texans are in a predicament. Watson obviously has got a predicament, and I don't see it being worked out anytime soon.
This offseason for the Houston Texans. On the field, what's the direction of the organization, John? You mentioned Culley as the new head coach, Caserio as their general manager, and Tyrod Taylor, it would appear, would be their quarterback in September. A lot of 1- and 2-year contracts this offseason across that roster in free agency. What do you make of their immediate plan, as bad as it might be?
I wrote a column for yesterday. Actually, it's in the Chronicle today and on our sports website, Texas Sports Nation, about, barring injury, Tyrod Taylor, Tyrod, not Tyrod. Tyrod Taylor would be the starter. His last 2 teams, Cleveland and the Los Angeles Chargers, he was supposed to be the starter, and he got hurt early in the season and was replaced by Baker Mayfield and Justin Herbert. Now, I thought when they signed Taylor, I said immediately, Texas is going to get a franchise quarterback. That's what happens when you get him. But I don't believe that anymore. And when he started 3 seasons for Buffalo, he did really well. He had a winning record, helped him go to the playoffs. In 2017, David Culley was his quarterback coach. And the reason they wanted him here is Culley coached him then. Nick Caserio was the personnel director at New England, watched him play 6 games in those 3 seasons against the Patriots. And their new quarterback coach, Pep Hamilton, was his quarterback coach last year. And if you watch Hard Knocks last year, you saw how much Anthony Lynn and the coaches liked Taylor and respected him. And then, of course, they said he was the starter going into the season. He started 1 game, and the rest is Chargers history. Nick Caserio has made 31. He has made, let's see, with trades and free agent signings, he has made 31 moves, counting players on his roster. He's now made more than 40. And I've never seen a team do that, has so many free agents. 26 are signed to 1-year deals. The only one signed to more than a 2-year deal was a punter. So a lot of these guys won't be on 53-man roster. A lot of them won't be around this time next year, but some of them may have played well enough to get a new contract when the cap goes up. But what they have done is they've had a lot of competition. I could see them having 10 or 11 new starters. Not a lot on offense, but a bunch on defense. And but I still think they would compete for the first pick in the draft. And as I've told people here, if you're going to be bad, be all the way bad. The last 2 times they needed a quarterback, and they had the first pick in 2006. They took Mario Williams, and then in 2014 they took Jadeveon Clowney. And right now, next year, there's no Trevor Lawrence that we all see is sure to be first overall pick. That's why it was important that they get that franchise quarterback this year. But I don't see them being able to do that because of Watson's situation with the lawsuit.
Wound down, John, you'd been kind of mystified. I don't know if that's quite the right word, at all the attention Jack Easterby was getting from national media and the like. What kind of presence does he have in that front office now? Is he a bigger force now, and do you think he's a big issue, a medium issue, or not an issue there as things go forward with a new GM and a new coach?
First of all, Jack Easterby came here in 2019 when from New England, and he was vice president of player development. Nobody really knew what that role was, but he got in good with the McNair family that owns the team, and Bill O'Brien, who was the coach. 2 months later, the GM Brian Gain was fired, even though Bill O'Brien didn't have the title of GM then. He had final say over personnel. Next year, he got the title of GM. He worked closely with Easterby. Easterby was named executive vice president of football operations. And so he had his hands in everything, but he didn't have the authority to make a personnel decision. As all VP of football operations do, they make suggestions just like the personnel staff, coaching staff, scouting staff, and that's what he does. Now, people thought when O'Brien was fired, Easterby should be fired too. This is the first week that I can remember that talk shows or one of the Chronicle columnist has not called for Easterby to be fired. He gets ripped constantly here. And the reason is every bad decision that was equated with Bill O'Brien was equated with Jack Easterby because O'Brien used to say, we make these decisions jointly, even though everybody knew, nobody told Bill O'Brien what to do. And just like Nick Caserio was hired from New England, this is the third time the Texans had tried to hire him. They finally got him. He admitted to he's friends with Easterby. You know, they worked together 6 years in New England and they knew each other personally, but it's in his contract that he has final say over personnel. And Jamie Roots, the team president, left because he didn't like Easterby getting involved in things on the business side, which was his responsibility since 2002 when they were formulated. And then others have left, but the McNair family, they love Easterby. They believe in him. They think he knows how to win a Super Bowl, and it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It doesn't matter how many people demand that he be fired. It's not going to happen. So he's here, and the good thing is he doesn't have final say on any personnel because, as Bill Belichick told us last year, Jack's not a personnel man.
What did you make of Urban Meyer, of all people, being the one to complain about not being able to meet face-to-face with free agents because he can't get a good judge of their character when he can't meet them face-to-face?
Well, he sounded like a college recruiter, and he was one of the best in the country everywhere he's been, most recently Ohio State, of course. And now they're having to, at first they were signing them sight unseen. Now you can meet with them. But the initial wave is over, and the Jaguars signed quite a few of them. And I think he was just showing at this point that he was naive about the inner workings of the NFL. But the fact he's going to have Trevor Lawrence is going to make him happy for a long time. I've proposed here quite a few times that Nick Caserio call Urban Meyer and tell him, say, hey, you retired twice because of health reasons. So it stands to reason you're not going to be there for the long haul. So instead of watching Trevor Lawrence develop, how would you like to have Deshaun Watson? Well, probably, I'm guessing if that happened, Watson would invoke that no trade clause because I don't see him wanting to go to the Jaguars.
Win the first day of free agent spending, do not win the Super Bowl, generally speaking. New England has not been involved in early free agent spending to any large degree. They usually sit back and laugh at those teams. This year, complete turnabout. They didn't have good draft classes, do big contracts. Their books cleared. They had a lot of money, and they were the most active team out of the gate. You hot or cold on that? You think they're going to build a winner out of what they got? Or they're going to end up like most teams that go crazy at the beginning of free agency?
Not unless they get a quarterback. You know, they've won March. In the past, they were only concerned with January and the first weekend and first Sunday in February. But in this case, everybody loves it when their team spends a lot of money in free agency. It's the only time people in Jacksonville and fans of the Jets were able to get fired up was the off season. Just like there was a stretch here with the Oilers when they went 6 years in a row with losing records, and the highlight of the year was the draft. And we could be headed that way next year with the Texans, not this year because they don't have their first and second round picks again. And so I think it depends. I don't think they're through at quarterback. I think Bill Belichick wants to get one in the draft, whether he trades up to get one of the top 5 or he thinks he's going to get somebody in the second round like he did with Jimmy Garoppolo. for some reason, people still think he's going to end up with Garoppolo. And I'm thinking, so what would Kyle Shanahan do in San Francisco for a quarterback? Maybe Shanahan at 12 gets Mac Jones or trades up to get somebody, and then Garoppolo could end up back in New England. But I'm happy for the fans of teams that spend a lot in free agency and the media because it gives us a lot to write and talk about. But ultimately, it is proven to be a curse, and maybe the Patriots will break the curse.
Follow him on Twitter at McClain_on_NFL. We like to throw in a few extra underscores just for fun because you can never get enough in John's Twitter handle. John, we can't get enough of you on the show. Thank you for being on again. We're thrilled to have you back, and let's do this again soon.
Terrific as usual.
John, Chad, and Paul, thank you guys very much for having me, as always, and keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thanks,
John McClain, Pro Football Hall of Famer, right there with us here on OutKick 360. Coming up, we will go from current league players to future league players. We have thoughts and analysis. We're each going to pick out one prospect for the upcoming draft as we give an early preview of some players we're keeping an eye on. OutKick 360 NFL draft coverage next on the OutKick Network. One big early thought on NFL draft prospects. Alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Kuharsky, I'm Jonathan Hutton. Welcome to OutKick 360 across the OutKick